Hello and welcome to session 2 of Legacy Life Among the Ruins. We're doing this on a Tuesday. Last week we had session 0 for Legacy, which is a thick session. A thick description, lots of stuff we generated last time. In fact, we left a couple of things over for this session that we're going to do with our characters, doing the relationships between them. I do want to mention that I went through everybody's quick characters, and they should be correct for the drop downs for your quick characters inherited moves. I've got that info in there, and I also marked on your quick characters what 2 stats they might potentially get. They have to choose from when you do quick characters. But that's something for later. If you're watching this at home, this is part of the Gauntlet Hangouts, which is an online gaming. I'm using the word club now because somebody said it in the Slack, and that's what I'm calling it. So that's what we are. You can find out more about that at gauntlet-rpg.com. Let me remind you, X card on the table. I like to mention this early on because it makes some people cry when they watch the video, and I like having that happen. So the other thing is we've got lines and veils set on the table. Our lines are harm to children, sexual assault, slavery, torture, and violence against children. Those are our lines. They're hard lines, things off the table. We've got lots of room for other stuff. And then veil, we'll draw a veil over, we'll fade to black on eye injuries, graphic gore, harm to animals, sexual content, suicide. We've already got a hard line on torture, so the veil is just an additional on that. So those things are on there. And again, if there's something arises, X card is a tool to use, and you can always add to the lines and veils that are present there. What I think we're going to do to start is we're going to take a look at that legacy map that we have. And that's in the folder. I'm going to grab the link here for everybody. I'll drop it in the chat. I want to look over and have people remind me of who their family is. And we put some things on the map, remind us about what they're about. I have some notes of my own. Primarily, what is the threat that is at hand that you are have generated? David, tell us again who you are.
Sorry, when I can find the unmute button. Yes, sure. So I am...
and just your family, we'll get to your character when Alan gets here.
Yeah, sure thing. Yes, so my family are known as the River Folk. They are, in game mechanics terms, they are the pioneers of the Depths playbook. So they are a family that lives primarily on the water. In the case of the River Folk, as you might gather from the name, they live on the rivers and lakes that flow through the homeland. The sort of the specifics of that are they kind of live in a nomadic community. Sort of in little mini sort of flotillas of riverboats. They travel around, set up camp in different places, sometimes for a week or two, sometimes for more extended periods of time. But primarily, they're a nomadic people. They're part of this is well, or either due to or leads to the fact they run in a fairly anarchic way. They don't really have much in the way of organized governance. They are mostly self-organizing and self-policing. following some sort of customs and rules, but not really having any formal governance. The people of the river folk tend to dress in quite light and flowing clothing, almost like kind of wraps and things, stuff that can easily be shed if they end up in the water, and easily dries off once it is wet, that sort of thing. Lots of netting and diaphanous fabrics. The one of the primary places where they are found is on the Great Lake, sort of towards the top of the center of the homeland, and the rivers that flow from it. A couple of important locations on the watercourses are there is a like a ship graveyard on the Great Lake. There's a large number of old commercial shipping vessels that have sunk to the bottom of the water, and is occasionally visited by the river folk to get supplies. And the further downriver, there is the ruins of an old city. There was some form of seismic event, possibly caused by various events we will, I'm sure, hear about shortly. That is kind of sunken down into the water course, into the what's the word I'm looking for? The water table, and is now half flooded, partially collapsed, and the water that flows through there is heavily poisonous from the various industrial discharges. It's in general and not the greatest of places to visit, and perhaps most significantly for the river folk at the moment, there is an underground volcano in the Great Lake, which is referred to as the Kettle, which seems to be on the verge of erupting.
Okay. That gives us a good sense of where you're at and what the threat is about. Rye, tell us about your family and the things that you have added to the map.
All right. I am playing the Enclave of Bygone Lore, and the name in the game is the Seeds of Sunset. These are a loose-knit bunch of families that are kind of descendants from past universities and research laboratories around the region that came together to understand the fall and what caused it in this new kind of energy source slash what some people call magic that's happening out there in the world. And no one's really sure if the arrival of this new magic was what caused the fall, or if it came out of the cataclysm that caused the fall. But they have been traveling the world and doing research and collecting artifacts that seem to be able to harness this energy and trying to understand it. And then they also are strong believers in building community and building new things. And they think that by working together, they can kind of uplift the remnants of mankind and hopefully create some sort of new civilization that can use this new sorcery to alleviate a lot of the want and needs and and then fight against some of the horrors that have kind of come out of the cataclysm. They tend to dress in kind of long, or in robes or in shawls or wraps around. They kind of have metal filaments woven through them. I'm thinking lots of copper that kind of is often very green and has corroded. So they kind of have these green coppery sheens to a lot of their clothing. Most of them wear masks. A lot of that's due just to the stuff in the air and for different health reasons that they've studied and things like that. But you rarely see their actual faces. When you do, obviously something has gone on genetically with them. They tend to have very smooth features, be very kind of asexual looking. I think they have a range of skin tones, but most of them tend to be on the darker side. And then governing structure, they have a bureaucracy where it's you go out into the world after you've completed a number of years of study and proven that you know the basics of sorcery and technology and you can fend for yourself. And they are required to go out and do kind of a unique piece of research or understand a new piece of technology and bring that back so that it can be incorporated and used for the benefit of mankind. For the map, I'm trying to remember all the things that I put on here. I think I'll start with the meld down in the bottom left corner. That was a giant research center that was kind of looking at incorporating, creating new life forms that could absorb sunlight and other types of energy and do cool things with it. And it's a giant living laboratory. The walls of it are alive and have kind of created different natural / technological creatures and defense mechanisms, but they are people, the seeds are very interested in trying to gain access to that. There's also Destiny's Rainbow, which is just this maelstrom of fog and magic and weird nanobots floating around in there. And people go in and sometimes they come out and sometimes they're changed and sometimes they're ill when they go out and they come out healed. And it's really a roll of the dice. And we've been trying to research that, but it's been very difficult. And the last thing is the Warren, which is another old laboratory where they were working on, I think, kind of creating new forms of life. And this has kind of spawned a number of larger, more aggressive creatures, which we'll have to kind of detail those, I think, as we encounter them. They are spreading rapidly around that area. So we see that as a threat.
I've got a couple questions. I did note you traded out engineering to get yourself an additional area of knowledge.
Right.
So that's a pretty big sacrifice. So want to make sure that we use and bring those into play with the deep knowledge. Two other things. One is for the things, how do you fight, how are you defend, how you travel, and your use for expertise. The game hides this rule, but you get 3 of those 4. You have to pick one you don't get.
Okay.
Yeah. This is a mistake that I have each time I miss it and forget about it and don't mention it in character creation. The other question I have for you is, you're nomadic. Do you imagine that your people are in a particular area of the map, have a range that they go in, or are they all over the place? How do you imagine that nomadic movement that you have?
I imagine that we have these, well, I guess I'll keep then the rugged APCs and land transport. I imagine that there's kind of these large kind of moving research laboratories that we have. And there are different families around from the different previous research institutes or universities and stuff. And they just kind of move and set up camp whenever they find something they want to research and dig into. Or if they're trying to help a particular community build some new technology or something.
So very different from nomadic migrations that are responding to climate or food supplies or things like that. Okay, that's great. So anywhere on the map. Okay, that gives me a good sense of that. Leandro, let's have you tell us.
Yeah, so my family is using the Stranded Starfarers playbook. They're called the Dancing Wave, and they are not of this world. They're from outside of planet Earth entirely. In that, well, they've come here, and the fall has happened, and it's kind of stranded them here for the moment. Specifically, the Dancing Wave is a race of biomechanical cephalopods. Most of them take the form of cybernetic cuttlefish, and I think I decided that just because of the alliteration. They they spread out in the galaxy as mentioned as a wave. The doctrine I picked with them was stellar locus. So their aim is usually to like get into planets and kind of like just get in and like take up their resources and just establish themselves in the planet. It's part of the way they live, and it's almost instinctual. It's part of like it's something that's been ingrained into like their culture for a long time. It is to just get out there and survive. What they know from their shared history is that they lost their home world to either war or famine or mistakes or whatnot, and so the dancing wave decided to to adapt to those sort of troubles. Part of the way they adapt is their signature sort of technology, which is their use of nanogel. And nanogel probably has a lot of things they could use for, but the main thing they use it for is to create suits for themselves. I use the metaphor is like imagine like mechs, but instead of humans, they're being ridden by cuttlefish. And usually these nanogel suits are shaped to shape in the form of whatever species they're interacting with, or they're trying to like infiltrate in. So for the moment, most of what they look like are humanoid forms for sure. You know, bipedal, um, um, and it's a mishmash of like cultures of what they're wearing and whatnot because they were still at they were still at the midst of like infiltration when the fall happened, so it's all a bit sketchy. Part of what the dancing wave does, like they go to like a culture that's like seems fairly advanced enough and just take up their customs and whatnot, but the apocalypse happened and a lot of new cultures are popping up, so and they're part of that now instead of just flitting in the shadows. They are part of that culture, so it's all a bit confusing. It also doesn't help that like because they're spread out wave, their governance is like no, they're bound to code. There's not like any like real leadership or whatnot. Everyone's kind of like devoted to what it is they do. Like obviously there's some differences. Like specifically this group worships has worshipped or has remembered worshiping some sort of presence in space or whatnot. But because because they kind of been caught out by the apocalypse, they're they're in the midst of like trying to figure stuff out. Like, oh, is this a chance to finally break free from like the gravity of their history, or is it, or should we hold on to the history because that's the thing that makes us that keeps us us while we're in this or having to interact with all these other people. So I think definitely at this point, people know of the dancing wave. People know of, oh, we've got aliens. What's up with that?
And the things you added to the map?
Yes. The actually the thing that brought them to Earth was this like project before the fall called Project Sunbeam. It's just like this massive glass skyscraper installation that's basically like the biggest telephone receiver that humanity built to like try and contact other life out there, and it worked. But by the time the dance wave got there, the apocalypse happened, and but Sunbeam still stands, a big, massive communications array that is now leaning, so that's not good. Um, the the thing that the dancing wave did when they got here is they took out the planetary defense center of humanity. So clearly there was a time when some humans were like, okay, if we find aliens out there, we should be able to defend ourselves. But the dancing wave struck first, and now what's left is like a massive crater. That's like I'm imagining. It's like uh, it's like what if the Pentagon got hit or exploded from the inside. So there's still a lot of stuff inside. There's still like whatever secrets humanity had that were building. But the dancing wave was not called that crater. The eye blinded, and what and the threat that's kind of like pertinent to them is a rapidly expanding alien ecosystem. It's like it's a defect of their nanogel suits. Sometimes the because nanogel is always adaptive, malleable. They have the technology to like keep it under wraps. But sometimes when like when nanogel just kind of like just spreads out, it starts like taking in uh s- taking in its surrounding. It starts kind of like terraforming or creating it into its own thing. So right now there's like a perfect circle of a forest that's expanding to the west. Um, it's creating this weird techno-organic fiber optic forest. Like, I imagine there probably was like probably some sort of like grove or copse of trees there, that something happened where someone's nanogel went haywire, and it's now feeding off those trees, expanding to like create this perfect circle of trees and wires, and whoever gets caught up there gets added to it, and that place is called the Strife Endured.
And like the Seeds of Sunset, you're also nomadic. Do you have a particular area, or are you also, anywhere, or is there a rhyme to reason to the passage of your people throughout the homeland here?
I think there there would have been before the fall, certainly. There definitely is like, okay, here's like our main ship and whatnot. But I'm imagining like, because again, there's a decentralized code, they're all scattered. There's not like, there may be pockets. There's certainly like, I imagine there's like probably like a larger pockets than most, but like it's not like big enough to be like say the sanctuary or that ship graveyard where the river folk are. It's like you see these drop ships, and I'm imagining these drop ships are shaped like what they actually are, as in like they do look like floating cephalopods, which is it's a cheery sight.
Yeah.
It's fine. But yeah, I think definitely I don't think there's nothing central. They're all quite scattered, for sure.
Okay. One of the things that we'll have you do at some point, and this can happen in play, or you might think about it for next session, is I will have everyone come up with an NPC faction that we can put on the map, to have someone to play off of, in addition to PCs, things like that. We'll figure that out. One of the easy ways to do that is to look at the family playbooks, the ones that haven't been chosen, and build something around that.
I did
When we
have a
talk
question.
about, pardon?
Sorry, it's a mechanical question.
Yeah.
I took a move called Alien Physiology and said pick 1 to 3 tags all my characters have from now on. And
Mhm.
for each tag, I add an extra penalty to my harm box. Is that the minus stat thing?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I don't want to get wounded. All right,
You don't want to
cool.
get too crazy on that,
Yeah,
but I
well,
think
not all. Yeah,
you can spread
right.
those out.
Yeah, but I think all of them now have because I took 2 tags.
Just don't get hurt.
I've,
Tell that to a firebrand, I guess.
Yeah,
well, can I switch my surplus from leadership to defenses?
absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks.
One of the other things I wanted to mention is this is a thing I've noticed in running this common play that I just want to kind of point your attention to and have you think about. Um, you have generated treaty on other families, and some families have generated treaty on you. And one of the basic family moves is calling in a debt. And calling in a debt has you spend the treaty that you have with the family, and at that point you can take a surplus from them, get them to back you up, fall into indecision or protect something, or you can ask them a question. And then if you do that to somebody, they can reply, if they have a treaty on you, by spending a treaty to resist, or they can make a hold together move to resist. One of the things is to consider when using the calling and the debt. Players often don't like putting that kind of pressure on other players. So as a result, we will see players kind of try to find other ways around it, because the way that the move is framed and worded, it seems very aggressive. But in fact, consider the treaty as an element of diplomacy. The treaty has been, these are agreements that have been made. So when you are calling in about a surplus, or you are asking them to do something, it's because you have built up those diplomatic relations. It's not necessarily an ultimatum you're presented with or something like that. It's just one thing that I've noticed in running this for a bit, that is very easy to fall into that. Well, let's do this. Let's take 5. And if we don't have Alan back by then, what we'll do is we will start looking at the PCs and getting a sense of who they are, and then go to relationship building on that. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, we'll just take 5. Hello, sir. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now, Lowell?
Yes.
Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. When we get everybody back, we'll have you introduce your family. When we get everybody back, we'll have you introduce your family. That's sort of what we've gone through, and then we'll move to the character part of it.
I can't see anybody else.
They're away right this second.
Right.
There we go.
I'm gonna ditch the power armor, by the way, Lowell.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna cry a little bit, but
I know that is actually, I think, the toughest choice of this game is when they give you these 4 really cool things, and they're like, take 3.
yeah, I just feel like the other 2 are I've already kind of built into the vehicles and the scholars. I feel like I should have to have the scholars, and then if I don't have weapons, I don't know, but I guess I can just run away all the time. But
What is a morphing pistol?
I was thinking of this actually more as them channeling the magic. So I don't think it's an actual device. I think people think they're pistols, but their cloaks are usually over their hands, and so beams of light shoot out.
I like that. I like
I
that.
don't know, something like
that. Alan, so what we're going to have you do is give us the quick elevator pitch on your family, and tell us about the things that you added to the map. I'll drop the map link again in there. You are muted right now.
Sorry, too many windows, too little time. Yes, elevator pitch. Okay, the Sky Children are based on the Serene Choir. It's an additional playbook outside the original core part of one of the stretch goal extensions. And I see the Sky Children who arrived in the homeland when a crystalline shard crashed into the wilderness. We know not where. And I see the Serene Choir as helpful aliens. Whether they are truly alien or just alien is an open question. But yes, I see them as wanting to help raise humanity back to a position where humanity too can appreciate the joy of the presence, which is the a cross between God and the Force, I think. That do?
That does. I do have a question for you. I noticed you've got just, and you have to remind me if we talked about this, you've got only 1 move for your family moves and 3 moves for your personal moves.
Yeah, and I think that's my mistake.
Okay.
So
yeah, it should be 2 and 2.
Yeah, bear with.
Sure. No, you can pick those as you need. What are the things that you added to the map?
I will tell you in a moment.
Sure.
You just have to remind me where I put the map, Lowell.
Oh, I dropped a link in the chat there.
So you did. Thank you. Yes, so I added the sanctuary, which is the shard that the Sky Children arrived in. Its significant point is that no one can enter the shard without our permission. It is entirely defended. The other thing I added was the Dark Crystal. At about the same time that the Sky Children arrived, another shard crashed into the wilderness called the Dark Crystal. And either they issued from the Dark Crystal or they are humans perverted by the Dark Crystal. But there are a group of offenders sentenced to immortal suffering, now escaped and hell-bent on revenge, which I christened the Damned. And they occupy a range between the rest of us and the Dark Crystal. And I think the other thing I added was the Blight, fouled by the betrayal that killed the Presence's faith in us all. So The presence once flowed through and around the homeland before the fall. In what form, we don't know. But something happened in that area beside the Great Lake. That betrayal is now signified by this blight, a fouled area of marsh and swamp, I think.
Sorry,
I think that's everything I added.
Yeah. What we're going to do, one thing I mentioned to everybody is that at some point, either in play or next time, we're going to have everybody put an NPC faction on the map as well. So we have people to interact with, and I suggested looking at the family playbooks that haven't been used as good models. You are one of the few sedentary of the four we have. The others are travelers or nomadic. So having the sanctuary is you're the one sort of marker of a civilized place. But we assume that there are settlements and NPCs and unaligned groups that are out there as we need to have. So with that in mind, what we're going to do is we're going to have everybody introduce the PC, their focus PC for their family, telling us about them. We'll have everybody introduce them, and then we'll do those backstory questions. We didn't do those last time, right? We held off on that.
We did do them.
We did do them. I'm getting this mistake with the other game that I ran of this. This is the problem of running two games parallel. So in that case, then we will simply have you give us a quick overview of that. And the thing I'm going to ask you about after you've given us the elevator pitch about who you are is I want to ask about that role move that you've chosen and what you think that implies about the wishes and desires of your character at this moment. So let's go ahead and start again with David. Give us the pitch on your character.
Certainly. My character is using the Historian playbook, which is basically a playbook about seeking out and finding hidden mysteries in the form of books or written material anyway. My character is called Dew on Meadows. He is young, kind of, I think, as we described it last time, that sort of young adult protagonist type thing, so probably in his teens of some variety. He's kind of, I think, kind of got golden brown tan skin, which is covered in, as I described last time, sort of tattoos that almost look like the flows of a river all over his body. Though on closer inspection, it's actually very, very tightly written script tattooed across him in sort of long swirls and undulations over his body. He wears sort of traditional riverfolk garb, which is to say usually just sort of a kind of a throw or something over him wrapped up. He'll probably wear slightly more durable clothes when he's actually out exploring away from the fleet, but that's his sort of usual state of dress. He has around his neck on sort of some thick cords, a large magnifying glass and a pair of mirrors hanging off. He is the curator of the riverfolk, or at least of his particular fleet, which is a sort of inherited role in his culture. They memorize a lot of lore, which they kind of pass down from one curator to the next about the riverfolk and the world, what they've learnt. and the words tattooed on him are in fact essentially the life work of his predecessor that he has tattooed over him. He is so yeah, the links he has with the other PCs. He's his predecessor was Radisol's tutor. At some point, Quartz saved his life on an expedition, and Soft once stole a cursed book from him. Yes, the role that I am in is the agent. The text that is, when your family's survival is uncertain, tell us about a forbidden tome which might just turn the tide. The GM will tell you about the book's current guardians. So do you want to do that now, or shall we come back to that?
Let me get everybody in, and then we're probably gonna tag a couple of those role missions as the one we're going to pull everybody to gather on a little bit at the start here.
Cool.
So that's great. That gives us a good sense. Rye, let's have the pitch on your character.
All right. I'm playing Radisol the Fourth, which is the scavenger playbook. Radisol is kind of a little bit odd for his people in that it's kind of flunked out of the usual roles of going after high tech and sorcery and being a real scientist, but is proven their worth in terms of being someone who can go places and find what the others in his community need for their work. So they go out and they bring stuff back to the group. My backstory is that Dew on the Meadows has much to learn about life in the wasteland, whereas I worked with their predecessor and probably now see this new version of them as kind of young and inexperienced, and trying to bring them along since I've learned so much from Brooke. Soft is why I came back to Civilization, so I think we'll have to dive into that. Maybe I had gone off on my own for a while, but they convinced me to come back and continue the work of my people. And then Quartz shares my love of discovery and diving into new things. And I took the agent role, which is Mark. When a group is relying on you to find a crucial component, say who else is looking for it.
Okay. Awesome. And then Leandro?
Yeah, I'm playing Soft. Uses she or they them pronouns. Soft is short for all soft and still and fair, which is the sensation she felt upon birth, because all people in the Dancing Wave can remember that, or at least claim to remember that. I mean, some people may decide other things so they can have cooler names, but Soft decided to be honest because that's her thing. I guess, in the scheme of the Dancing Wave here on Earth, she is kind of like she's using the Firebrand playbook, I should say. She's kind of like a self-nominated ambassador / sort of like person who goes out and meets with other cultures. That it's self-nominated. I don't think anyone in the Dancing Wave agreed to that, but Soft's definitely someone who is fully committed to. We don't have to be who we were. We can adapt to this new world, and just like we don't have to like be suspicious and be locusts or whatnot. We don't have to just come in and take what we need. We can just stay here and be something else. Her nanogel suit is shape quite humanoid. I imagine like because I saw the Firebrand art has like big black hood, and I think she definitely is kind of like wearing a big black hood because the one thing I mentioned is that because it has been that while the Dancing Waves nanogel suits, when they look human, they look a bit off, still a bit off, like a bit uncanny valley, a bit more plasticine. It's like we're living in we're looking, everything we see right now is 720p, but for some reason the Dancing Wave are 1080. They look weird. That's definitely what Soft looks like right now. Her face cast, for some reason, I'm imagining she looks like there's a Star Wars comic book character named Dr. Aphra, who's kind of like jackass Asian Indiana Jones. She's great. That's basically what Soft looks like right now. Yeah, and her backstory with the other three is that she respects Quart's concern for others. We'll meet Quartz in a moment. She doesn't understand how Deuce's position helps benefit the world, because as far as she's concerned, he's just reading stuff. He's not doing anything. All he does is collect books and learn from them. I don't know, how do you're not applying yourself to the world? And Radical can teach Soft how to understand this new world, because Radical's a scavenger. He's been out there. He's been out and about in the world. And the role that Soft took is, oops, I'm in the wrong tab, is outsider. Mark when your family betrays your creed. Name a principle: those who break it this age risk ruin. And the principle I picked is honesty.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Alan, tell us about your character.
Okay, quartz that is flawed. Hang on, I was going to try and be clever here. Let's see if I manage that.
Oh, nice.
Are you seeing me, or are you seeing the picture?
We're seeing the picture and you in the little chat window.
Well, now I will stop sharing, because that's all you need to know. So yeah, the Serene Choir, all members of the Serene Choir look something like that, so it's difficult to tell them apart. Quartz that is flawed is assumed to be he, him, because of his masculine build, but he speaks through that grill on the front of the hooded leather cape, coverall, heavy boots and gauntlets with a mask pierced by these slightly red glowing eyes, otherwise swathed in these dark, in this case, leather cowled robes. He is a rebel among the Serene Choir. We'll need to decide who the choir have cut links with, and therefore who Quartz that is flawed determines to separate himself from the choir and set off to help. Because like all the choir, Quartz wants to help. He wants to protect these humans who ruined the world once and can be brought back to the light. The rebel. Yes, so I've chosen a couple of what will appear to the locals to be very high-tech moves. So I've chosen curative admixture and an experimental energy projector. In terms of his relationships, he's concerned about Radical, Radical from the Seeds of Sunset, because I think that Radical hates everything he doesn't understand. And what all humanity needs to come to terms with is that there's a lot they don't understand. And so Radical needs careful guidance. Dew, however, I think can guide me to some truth. I'm not sure what that is, but I think Dew can guide me to some truth. While Soft, I fear for Soft, because I fear that Soft would soon be lost without my technology, or perhaps more precisely, our faith.
And for the thinking about the rebel, certainly that can be an NPC family or faction that you make up, or it can be one of the PC factions as you want to do with that. Do want to ask one thing. So, how do your compatriots tell you apart? Given that you say they I mean, what are the distinctive dress or features or marks?
I think that there may well be subtle differences to do with this general uniform that is obvious to other members of the choir, but less obvious to people outside. My guess is that The other player characters will recognize quartz because I think our setup is that we are going to be thrown together, or at least we have enough history to come up with those views of one another. So I think they can tell him, but whether the average human in the wilderness can tell members of the choir apart, I think is a different question.
Okay.
And that can be confusing to people because sometimes the choir, in order to do good, can appear to not do good. And so this leads to a slightly flaky reputation, I think, where, can you trust the choir? There was this guy from the choir and he did this good thing for us. And then one rolled along and did something entirely different.
All right. So the volcano is an issue for your family right now, Duan Meadows, correct?
That's right. Yep.
It has certainly changed the temperature of the lake in places. It's created wild currents. It's probably changed the weather pattern there. There may have been some blooms there, and there's a real nervousness because if it starts killing the fish here, or if it causes, if there's some sort of ashfall or whatnot, that could destroy, a vast amount of the range that your family survives on. Tell me about this forbidden tome that could turn the tide.
Yeah, certainly. So I've heard tell of an ancient tome it's called the Magma Opus, and it's a book of
I see what you did there.
Yeah. It apparently contains secrets about controlling and maybe even harnessing the power of seismic forces.
Excellent. And what you have heard is that the Magna Opus was stolen by a group of radicals that had some religious belief in that more stressed the idea of the presence as pure force, and that people could become gods by harnessing the force, and not believing that there's any kind of animistic part to it. And they fled with the Magma Opus a number of years ago into the crater known as the Eye Blinded. And so where we're going to start today, we're going to kind of roll in, I think, Radical's role purpose into this one. And we're going to start with the four of you essentially on an expedition. We're going to start at the personal level. We'll figure out who's, if you have groups with you or whatnot, but we'll figure out the reasons for that. So Radical, what is the crucial thing that your family is looking for that might be found in the crater, in the Eye Blinded, either among these heretics or in the crater itself?
I think that there was a great energy source needed to create whatever blew up the crater. And we have a device that allows us to shield an area. And what we're interested in is starting to build a permanent settlement somewhere. And so we want to find that power source and be able to because right now we can set it up around our encampments,
Mm-hmm.
but it usually lasts for a while, and then we move on and charge it up as we're on the road, I think with solar cells or magical gathering devices that are akin to solar cells. So we're looking for something more permanent that will allow us to set up those permanent defenses.
And it's probably a residue, techno-magical residue from the destruction that was visited on this spot by the dancing wave. So their energy probably was absorbed into that land there. And you're hoping to essentially discover an energy surplus that you can bring back. So that's sort of what's on the table. With that in mind, Quartz, why have you, I mean, you know these people, why have you been drafted or volunteered or sent to join this expedition?
I think I just want to tie this very simply into the rebel move. I think that the river folk have in some way offended the Sky Children, and perhaps the Sky Children could have warned the river folk about this impending eruption and didn't. And I'm frankly disgusted by that. And so I have left the sanctuary to seek out friend Dew to see if I can help.
And have you informed Dew that is the reason, or do you keep that more close to your chest?
No, I think that Quartz is honest as the day is long, and that he will explain to Dew that he's here. I am, I'm here to help you, but we won't do that all night. I'm here because I believe, and a lot of, I am here because I believe that the Sky Children have misunderstood the action of your elders and should not see it as disrespect, but as an opportunity for teaching and learning.
And with that in mind, Soft, how did you get connected up with this?
I think she was there when they kind of arrived. I get the feeling. I think the dancing wave has not been honest about the fact that they were the ones who blew up this place.
Okay.
For sure. That's why outsiders marked, because dancing wave, as far as they're concerned, at least most of them, as far as they're concerned, that's the past. No, we don't. It's not our responsibility anymore. It did kind of help us out, and I think Soft's just really annoyed by that. So once again, she's kind of like self-appointed herself to like, look, if anyone's going to come here, okay, so anyone's going to be here. I get the feeling that maybe some of the families probably did reach out to like the wave to like ask for some help, and they're like, that's not our responsibility. We got a forest to take care of. But I think Soft has, as she's wont to do, self-appoint herself as the one who lead them here, because I'm not yet sold on this idea, but she may have been here before, back when it was still standing.
Oh, interesting. Was a person who infiltrated to prepare the way?
Yeah, maybe even like this face she's wearing came from this place.
All right. We'll frame in where we're going to start here in a second, but when we zoom into the personal level, each of your characters can equip themselves with any of their family assets. That means the weapon, the armor, the people that you might have with you, the transport. And then you also get an additional benefit. You count how many surpluses you have. And for each of those surpluses, you get to essentially spend that like hold to do some things. And this is on the family moves in the farthest end. It's the tool up move. Each of the surpluses value can be spent to add a tag to a piece of gear, get as many copies of a weapon, outfit, or vehicle as needed to outfit the whole party. Add 1 to the quality of a set of followers for this mission. And quality often means hit points as they're kind of worn out. Or if you can't think of anything else, get scouts reports worth 1 data because data is a useful resource to spend. And you can do that on the fly. I'm not, you don't have to necessarily pick all that out right now, but I just want to point you to that sort of the tooling up. It's a set of choices that are made, and then we zoom in. So how do you think this expedition is moving there? Is it relying on the boats of the river folk, or is it relying on the science transports of the enclave of the Seeds of Sunset?
I'm happy to be providing an ATV, or whatever they're called, the personnel carrier, to take us in there. I think our family would be interested in this enough to be providing that as a mission.
Okay.
Can I? It's an important feature of the Sky Children that they don't travel; they are summoned. So we are summoned by the plea of our sworn allies. So I'm guessing that in the morass of prayer chatter coming up from the river folk, the desert heat haze parts, and out will appear quartz.
That seems perfect. Now I'm going to ask you a question here, and I'm going to make you make a tough choice. I had Rye make this tough choice as well because the book doesn't spell this out particularly well. You've got those 4 awesome things: how you fight, how you defended, how you travel, and what's your useful expertise. You only get 3 of those.
Oh, what a shame!
You only get 3, so
okay.
you have to pick one you don't have.
Okay. Well, I will at this point put aside the scourge that I was interested in, and I will say, how do you fight your sacred blade, melee elegant? How you defended a shining halo, regal mantle? And how do you travel the plea of your sworn allies?
So you have arrived and have been welcomed. Rye, tell me what this ATV, this transport looks like. What is that? Do you have scholars with you?
Yeah, I'm definitely bringing probably just a handful of scholars, since Radical is not the scholarly type. I think he probably has like 3 scholars with him that have kind of studied this. I think they've been working on the Destiny's Rainbow, and so they've kind of been experimenting on weird energy manifestations and stuff like that. So they're coming along. I think I'm imagining gigantic, like 3 wheels on each side, big, tall, off the ground, armored kind of canopy in the back, and then like 2 or 3 people up front, sitting and driving.
Well maintained, worn, patchworked. How are you imagining the look of this thing? What does it tell us about how your family uses these?
I mean, these are like our bread and butter. Like, without these, we don't get around, and we can't do it. And I think that each of them contains a portion of the knowledge, either within books or artifacts within, that we think will be useful. So not only are they like a transport vehicle, but they're also like a mobile library. So I think on the outside, they're not like perfectly maintained, but there's no like rust or holes or anything. They've been there. I mean, we've had to weld parts on or whatever as like we would go along, but they're in good condition.
I like that. And let me ask you, David, have you brought along fisher folk with you for?
No, I don't think I've brought any of the fisher folk along. I think this doesn't really seem like the sort of thing that they're up for. I think what I do have is I think while we've been traveling in the ATV, I think I do have I think a sort of a fast boat has been shadowing us along the river in case we need to make our escape that way. But obviously the ATV is more useful for actually getting up to the site itself. So
Right.
I think that's kind of in reserve. Yeah.
And that brings us to Soft. Soft, what do you have with you? How have you arrived? Have you ridden in one of these things before? What do we know about you? What do we see on screen about you?
I think. I mean, Soft probably did arrive alone because she's, again, Wave's not interested. They'd rather bury this than poke their head in. So I think she is just kind of like, she is just like sitting at the back of the ATV. Normally she's like quite chatty, but given where they're headed, she's a bit just looking at just putting her mind to the task, not like just concentrating on that at the moment. So yeah, because she's self-appointed this, I don't know if she has anything she would have brought. Let me look at actually the map.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not terribly sure. I mean, she has her how she fights, which is a psionic amplifier, for sure. But it's but those things are kind of like built in
Right.
to the suit.
You don't have your orbital shuttle.
No, I mean it's a bit showy. The ATV is fine. I don't want to be. I don't know if we want to go to this place with what is essentially a floating alien skull thing with a bunch of tentacles dangling off it. Probably shouldn't do that.
So it looks like Brainiac's ship. Okay. And what about what are the assimilators? Did you bring some of those, or
I think. Ooh. Yeah, like I thought like that meant like we're good at assimilating, not essentially that we have assimilators. Actually, can I slightly retcon a bit of this?
Yeah, please.
Because I've said that Soft has appointed herself to this expedition. Can we say that like she's not actually at the ATV? Like I said, they're going to meet her up, and she spent she spent a few days in that area.
Sure.
And I'm looking at the Firebrand move, Secret Army.
Okay.
When you spend a few days training rebels in an area, you don't have any followers. I don't think Soft has any followers, so it could be any area.
Followers would be the things you draw from that expertise. Would be the assimilators if you brought them along.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, definitely. I think Soft did self-appoint herself, but she has convinced a few of the Wave to like come with her. Then.
So what are these rebels that are in the area around the crater that you've engaged with?
I think these are members of the Wave who do want to like start worshiping the presence, and they've been brought here by the message that these rebels are putting out, that like, hey, we figured out how to bring the presence back to life. You just need power. We got this book. It'll be really cool. So a few of the Wave have kind of like, I imagine there's like a group of them that kind of live around this area, because some of them want to get into the sanctuary, but they're not allowed because
Sure.
Sky Children are particular. And so they're caught in between the sanctuary and the eye blinded, now that there's these heretics who are like offering their presence here. And I think Soft has come here to like convince them to like, maybe we should find out more about either of these before you start pledging yourself to anyone. Just make sure they're honest.
And what's their quality then? Which one do you want?
Spying.
Okay.
I think
All
for
right.
sure.
So the leader of these rebels is named Acrid, and from what the smell that they got when they were first born, and he has lived at the top of the crater, and he knows that there are these weird river folk heretics that have settled in the bottom and have like set up their own faith there, and aren't quite right and have been digging down into the crater, so that's who they are, and they're you've been training them. What does spying training look like?
Well, I think I've solidified in my head that yes, Soft did absolutely infiltrate this this place back when it was standing. Spying for Soft is about paying attention. It's about knowing what's important, what's unimportant. Which for a spy, a lot of things are very important,
Okay.
and it's knowing how to filter that to like what's the most pertinent thing to the situation, what's out of place, what could be used, what information could be useful to other people. It's about knowing and filtering, and that's what like Soft's been passing down to them. She's inadvertently trying to teach them to like be able to like suss out what might be suspicious to you, and she's also kind of saying, yeah, look, like if I teach you this, you apply these lessons to this presence thing,
Perfect. So we come to Radical. You are kind of leading this expedition to make it to the crater. You are driving along, and we have a move for that under basic moves. That is wasteland survival. When you navigate through the wasteland outside of settled lands, roll with steel.
Great. Do we have a dice roller?
Oh yeah, it is. I know we have it. Where is it?
There it is.
Do you find it?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Seven plus steel is 2 is a 9.
Is a 9. So on a 9 plus, you get to pick one from the list there under Wasteland Survival, which is lose something along the way, a member of your group is hurt or sick, or an obstacle or threat is blocking your way back.
Let's go with an obstacle is blocking our way back.
Okay. So you've been going along the cleared river area here. And this is a kind of a wildlands that you haven't been to before. And you are following along the river. The river folk don't come down this way because eventually the river terminates and falls off, into that crater. But as you are going along, you will see that there is this patch. At first you think it's pretty small, but it actually, as you move along, it looks larger, and you realize that it is something not unlike the strife endured. Your people have been near that place. You've seen that techno-organic forest, and it looks like almost like this is sort of some sort of droplet or some sort of spill that has occurred here. And even as you go along, you realize that it is expanding sort of, very slowly. And it is going to block your easy path back along this route. By the time that you turn back this way, you may have to find another way around or find a way to destroy it. or something like that? What's your reaction to that? What do you think? Is it showing up on your sensors? Do you have like cameras in the thing? Or are you looking at the windshield? How do you mention that? Muted.
I think it's visible out throughout the windshield, but I think Soft can join in and tell us more what this looks like.
So
but
Soft is not there yet, but
all right.
so
I think it's in this particular area. There used to be a bit of not a tall forest, but just like scrub lands here.
Mhm.
And what we're seeing is that this nanogel has kind of out in Los Angeles, there's this weird fungal thing that grows across the bushes down there, and it looks like silly string basically, but it's orange. And I think this is kind of what we see, that this is just kind of growing all throughout the brush here.
Yeah.
And it's stringing its way even across the road in a few places, but we can just kind of power through it right now.
You know that this is the stage one of this process, that this is that sort of covering process, and then it will start full on conversion of the area. Tell me, has Dew on Meadows seen this before?
No, I don't think so. I don't think he's really done much like traveling throughout the inlands of the area. So yeah, I think he's like almost not quite hanging out the side of the ATV, but probably not far off. He's probably got his face like pressed up against one of the windows, and will be sort of like staring at this in wonder.
And can I use my deep knowledge to tell a fact about this thing that will give us advantage on the way back?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that stage one is fine to kind of drive through right now, but when we get to stage two, it's going to start letting off spores, and everyone's going to need to have a mask on as we go back through here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can also tell me something I can do to get one tech from the subject, maybe when we come back.
If you haven't seen, it hasn't been this early stage stuff around for a very long time. And most of what you picked up has been from other people's researches and documentation, things like that. So if on the way back you can stop and harvest some of this, that will definitely give you some tech. Quartz, what do you know about these river folk heretics that don't believe in the presence as an animated force, but believe in the sort of the force version of it?
They are clearly heretical, and the presence cannot return to its. They need to be destroyed. Their heresy needs to be crushed.
Okay.
And perhaps that's why the Sky Children have suspended relations with the River Folk, because they've heard about this heresy. However, rather than sitting in their hands, I believe in going out there and getting them dirty.
Fair enough. So you will arrive at the edge, and this is a massive crater. While there are breaks along the side that have some level that you can kind of start to drive down, you kind of have to do it at an oblique angle rather than going straight down in. There are great sections of it that are smooth and fused from the heat or the effect of this, but the heat shimmer is different. It kind of crackles with the residual energy from whatever blast hit this thing. And there are sections where natural forces have kind of cracked and formed ruts. And of course, the river washes down into it, and you will we'll assume you'll see soft, but from up here at the edge, you can see that down towards the middle, there's definitely some water has accumulated or has been sort of banked in, and it looks like there is a settlement. But you can also see that there are gaps near that, almost like they've excavated into some kind of lower level below the where the crater outline is. Like they've found some deeper areas maybe that weren't hit by the blast. So Soft, where do they find you at the top of this crater edge?
Probably just sitting on some rubble, kind of like doing something that she probably thought looked cool, like flipping a coin. That she clearly is just doing for the first time to look cool. She's got her hood down, so like you can see again the weird HD 1080p effect against the heat shimmer of the crater. And to make use of those followers, I have to make a roll, right?
Yeah. So, do you want to have sent them down into the crater to do what you want?
Yes. Yeah. So just so like Soft would have something to say to share to
Absolutely.
them.
That is called under orders. You roll with their quality, which is a 1, and we see what happens.
Cool. It says for the firebrand when I tool up, I add 1 quality to a group of followers as well. So is that another one?
No, because Tulip will be bringing the followers that you would have had as stats.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is a secret army. Okay, cool. No worries. Well, +1's still good.
Yeah. So there's no chance you could fail.
I mean, I played in your games, Lowell. The dice roller almost exclusively hate me, but I got
it does. Get an 8. So it will get done, and I will say we'll give you some information. But you need to choose one thing. They fell short in a particular aspect. There's an unfortunate consequence, or it costs them and their quality drops by 1.
Let me double check what this secret army is. They won't leave the area and will go back to their lives once the local authorities have been overthrown. Yeah, I want to keep them around. I don't want the quality to drop. So they'll fall short, I think, because again, we're semi-military, I guess, but like they don't want to do that. They want to start worshiping this presence, whatever that is.
Then what they can give you is they've gotten sketches of a map of the way in and the defenses of the surface area, like by the body of water, and the sort of the small huts and things that they've set out. But they've seen that these heretics have found a way down, but they weren't able to get close to see what that was. They don't know what kind of like sub basement they're going into, or some kind of cavern. They don't know. Does that seem fair?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do the scene with Radical driving the ATV up to where Soft is at the edge of the crater, and comes to a stop.
All right, Radical kind of pulls it up, doesn't do like a hard stop or anything, because doesn't want to, bring up a big dust cloud and draw attention, but rolls up nice and slow, pops open the door, hops out. It's got their guests, their kind of mask on, but sees Soft flipping the coin, and I think they kind of say to Soft, "So when did you learn that trick?"
Only took me a couple of months, I suppose. Flip, grab. Give me a few more months and I'll figure out how to make this flip so it'll only ever land on one face. That's a handy thing to learn, apparently.
Yeah, did you figure out that yo-yo I gave you last time we saw each other?
She flips and just kind of grabs the coin in there and just like, I've parted ways with the yo-yo.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So what do we got going on down here?
Well, your heretics are further down. It's like we've seen a few of them pop up out in the surface, but they're pretty well entrenched inside. If you're gonna bring the fight to them, it's not gonna be easy. You're not here to fight, are you?
No, mostly I'd like to see if I can get down in there below and see what I can find to pull out of there. But I think they have something that belongs to do here, so we're going to have to engage with them on some level or do some covert ops here.
Well, let's bring Dew and Quartz in on the walk in on the conversation here. What's your response to this discussion?
Quartz lays a hand on Radical's shoulder and says, "That was an encouraging stop. Gentle, but to the point, Radical. Well done. Now, where are these heretics that we must crush?"
I see we're going to do subtle this time, are we?
The presence demands clarity of us, Radical of the Seeds. Clarity is not difficult to find.
Yeah, and Dew will sort of tramp over as well. I think he's wearing now kind of like a look something probably kind of like a boiler suit, but a bit tougher than that, a bit too big for him. So it's hanging off him slightly. But he's got kind of like a big like harness with several like ropes and grapples hanging off of it as he kind of comes over, and he sort of looks between all of you, to be honest, and says, "So what should how should we best approach this?"
Well, I know as clarity is easy for Quartz to find, but when one has lived among scholars for as long as I have, there are many ways to approach any subject, and the clarity that one finds can often be shrouded in as many questions as you started out with. I think we first need to know a little bit more about them and what kind of defenses they have. I don't know if we have the numbers here for an all-out assault.
But we have right on our side, Radical of the Seeds.
That's one people's idea of right, I suppose. Look, these heretics, whoever they are, do they deserve butchery as you're advocating here, Quartz?
You advocate soft of the wave, some choice should be offered to them.
I'd rather I just want to be sure. I'd rather not make judgments when I don't really know who these people are. All I know is they've taken a book. I've taken a book. Should I be butchered for that?
Would giving up the book remove the heresy?
She turns to Dew.
My
question, yeah.
My understanding is that at least part of the heresy is based on what they have learned from this book, so taking it from them might might lead them to change their ways, but I could not say.
So you say, Dew of the River, that the book is infective?
Oh, not that I'm aware of. I know little of it beyond its title, I will admit. Merely that those who had the book came here to enact because they believed it would allow them to do whatever it is they wish to do. Whether they got that idea from the book, I couldn't say.
My people would say that all books are infective and that knowledge is always there to worm its way into your mind.
So
Sounds
would a
wonderfully
solution that
dogmatic.
satisfied your concern for these heretics be that we simply destroy the book, remove the infection, and cure the heresy?
We need to recover the book.
Despite its danger?
I don't think it is dangerous.
I am concerned that Radical of the Seeds believes it to be infective.
I believe it is like any weapon. In the hands of those that wish to do wrong with it, it can be, great harm can come of it. But if we take it and if Dew has some purpose from which righteousness can come out of it, then we must also allow for that possibility.
I think Quartz, the head goes to the side and the speaker says, so the book could be a weapon. Did I understand that correctly, Radical of the Seeds?
I believe so, yes.
I will admit, my friends, that I am concerned about this book.
Soph is still flipping the coin. And she kind of flips it ostentatiously and she grabs and says, of course it's dangerous. It's a book. It contains knowledge. Knowledge is dangerous. Knowledge can be used to create or destroy anything. It could be used to push people to do things they wouldn't think they're capable of doing. That's what knowledge is. That's what history is. The question is whether this book will cause danger to a great number of people.
I think our primary concern should be removing the book from these heretics. I feel that if we can do that, either sense can be taught to them or at least they will not be able to do much further evil. What do you think, Dew?
Yes, the book. If we can get hold of the book, and I think we can avert far greater danger. And if in the process these heretics can also be turned from the path they have chosen, I suppose that is all to the good.
I too am encouraged by Radical of the Seed suggestion. I believe you are proposing an experiment. Heretic plus book, bad thing. Heretic minus book, questioned.
Yes, we would have to allow some time to see what come of it, or add in another variable, which would be heretic minus book plus missionary to try to conform or reform them to believe possibly in the right version of the presence. Perhaps with your leadership in this area, they might see the error of their ways.
We do not lead, we merely guide. But I think your experiment has merit.
Oh, we've decided on a plan. Good, fab. I love talking to people. Let's mosey.
Let's take 5, and when we come back, we will figure out how you wish to approach the settlement.
Sorry, Lowell, I accidentally hit the clear button on roll for your party, so I deleted your image. I was trying to delete my dice.
That's okay.
I was trying to delete my dice, but I got rid of it.
It's weird. I found out that when you do set background and you it'll only show you the background. It doesn't show it to everybody else.
As we may be coming to contact with heretics, I
Yes.
am right, aren't I, that you can tag a surplus. Is the word tag? You can if you have a surplus, you can then get an extra tag for a piece of equipment.
Yes. So you have morale, transport, and trade were your surpluses, right? Or no?
No, safety and justice.
Safety and justice. So you have two things that you can do of that list: get data, add a tag to an item, have it fully equipped. What are you thinking?
Well, I have a shining halo, regal mantle as my defense, and I'm inclined to tag safety to get camo. I can remain hidden if I don't move about much.
That makes sense. And
and I think, given that my sacred blade bracket of justice bracket, I'm going to tag it for ranged as well as melee elegant, if that's okay.
That seems perfect. I'll be curious what that looks like.
I think the scavenger also gets an extra tag to their what is it? Their garb. So I was going to take the camo too.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Can I take one scout's worth of data? One scout's report?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just fold it into the whole spice thing.
Data is always useful. So let me ask this then. I think this is the big question is your plan in general to go down very openly with the vehicle, or is your plan to wait, say, till nightfall and attempt to go down with a little more caution to see what you can find out, or some other variation on that?
If Radical of the Seeds experiment is to work, then I suggest a simple request for the book. Otherwise, we're not discovering whether the removal of the book, the means of the removal. If we request and they refuse, then we can take it, certainly. But it seems to me that to make sure the experiment works, we should give them an opportunity to give it up. It would be indicative of the depth of their infection.
Well, I think I was thinking that the removal of the book could happen with or without their knowledge of it. But in either case, we would need a substitute to fill that void in their faith. So that does lead me also to believe that some sort of face-to-face interaction will be necessary.
Yeah, Soft would prefer to talk at the moment. She has a soft spot for heresy.
However, I am a bit concerned about Dew's safety. If these folks, I don't know, Dew, were they, what was the relationship when they left your people? Are you worried they would do you any harm?
I do not think that they wish a specific harm. Though, as you say, I think they are unlikely to give up the book willingly, but we shall see. Hopefully that will be the case when they realize the severity of the situation. Perhaps they will relinquish it.
And it seems like we should approach them outright and, however, be prepared to beat a hasty retreat if needed. Soft, would your folks here be able to provide us cover if we need to leave quickly?
She kind of like looks up at the sky for a moment, and then her head kind of like angles back a bit the way a human really can't, as if like she's tracking something in the sky. And then her head goes back down and says, "Yeah, I've got that covered."
All right.
Are you on board with this plan?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. That sounds.
Then I think this is a challenging drive down along this crater. So this is Forge a Path, which is a peripheral basic move, which is rolled with force. And you can roll that radical, or we can have someone else roll that.
Mechanically, I've got a 0 in it, so I'm not.
I was hoping to possibly use my move Architectural Eye.
Ooh, okay.
When you take some time to plan out the exploration of a new ruin, roll plus steel, and then I could get up to 3 hold, and then I could roll with steel instead of force to forge a path.
I love it. Let's start by you rolling with steel.
Okay, so 2. Somewhere I put the dice roller. Oh, that's a 6.
That is 6. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This game has a mechanic, of course, for helping someone, but it has to be done beforehand.
Oh.
Yeah. So they have call for, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the family move. The personal move actually you can do afterwards. I apologize. The family move is the one where you give advantage. So this is call for aid. After failing a whirl as well as you'd like, say what another character can do to boost your efforts. If the group agrees, the helper says how they do it and roll appropriate stat. If they hit, they increase your result by a category. If they fail, it all goes terribly wrong.
I was thinking that possibly soft could help since they had done some preliminary work here, and maybe they help us. There's a couple of pitfalls that are hard to see, but they're people.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah.
So what do you think is the appropriate stat for that then? Soft? Is this you kind of seeing things, perceiving things? Is that lore?
Yeah. Oh dear, my lore's not great, but that's fine. It makes sense. She would be the one to know of this place because she's been here before, but it's not what she's good at. But there we go. No, you make me roll stuff. Okay, that's a 9. Okay.
That is a 9. So it will succeed, but you will also share in the move's consequences. So Forge the Path has you have to pick 2 of those things, Rye.
So that was the 6 was on my.
Oh, yeah, that's on your thing. Thank you.
Architectural Eye.
I apologize. I'm moving forward one step. So you will hold 2 on that.
2 on that, yeah.
Yeah.
So now I can spend 1 to roll steel on Forge Path.
Yes.
And then I'll still have 1 hold.
Fractal moves.
And I'm rolling steel on Forge Path. 12.
Look at you.
Right.
So you just have to pick one thing.
Oops. Close the PDF, sorry. I guess we'll do the route you took is lost.
I think as you move down along this, the ground that you are moving over is significantly softer than you thought it was, and you're having to move quickly because it's giving way even as you're going down on this route, and probably end up having to drive a little faster than you would wanted to kind of stay ahead of that. But you will roll down into this bottom of the basin of the crater, there are multiple like structures that have kind of been set up that are on the edges of this. They've almost built kind of a dam reservoir of the water that runs down here. But it is a very, like when you get down here, it has that sort of greenish tint to it, the water down here. And by the time you get down here, this group has come out, and they are cloaked and sort of in emulation of the Sky Children. They know enough to ape that, and yeah, there's a substantial group that has come up and taken some defensive positions by the time that you come down there and bring the vehicle to a stop. And they seem to be waiting.
Can I suggest, friends, that I remain within the vehicle? And if negotiations prove unfortunately short or unsuccessful, you simply summon me forth. I believe that my appearance may help, given the way that they have garbed themselves.
Of course, if you think that is best.
Well, then I guess here goes nothing, huh? So Radical will open the door, but instead of hopping down on the ground, I think there's like a ladder right next to the door that goes up onto the roof.
Okay.
And we'll kind of climb up on the roof because I think we're a little bit ways away still.
Yeah, you've given yourself some distance.
Yeah, and we'll just kind of put the hands up in a friendly manner and call out, "Hello there, friends. The Enclave, the Seeds are looking for some new energy sources, and we've picked up readings from here. We wish to speak with those of you who are in charge."
And you will see a figure step forward. And it says, "Are your friends staying inside the vehicle?"
Is there a problem with them staying inside the vehicle?
"I just want to know what is happening. We've had bad experiences in the past."
Hopefully not with the Seeds.
You want our energy source?
Well, we'd like to learn more about it. Perhaps we can help you to even make it better and learn from you and work with you.
It speaks to us. We understand it well enough. Perhaps if you were to come down, we could let it speak with you as well.
I am fascinated. We have never met an energy source yet that wanted to speak with us. I mean, assuming you don't consider the Sky Children an energy source, of course.
They are not an energy source. They are foolish heretics.
Heretics, really? What differentiates their beliefs from yours so clearly?
They personify the presence. When the presence is a force and energy that communes in a way that cannot be thought of as direct communication, it is apophatic in nature, unlimited.
This is going to be quite an interesting discussion, my friend. It is a good thing I've brought several of our scholars with who have focused on very similar topics. They are going to love this.
Then come down, you and your friends, and we will welcome you and give you the hospitality of guests as is only right and proper.
All right. Radical's going to step down into the cab and look over at Dew and Soft. and kind of whisper, I'm not so sure about this.
I don't know.
Has
they
the
got
experiment failed yet?
I don't know. Soft, what do you think? Do you want to
Yeah.
go in there?
Through the cabin, through the front window, you can see the person you talk to turns around and gestures, and some of these people go and move off to one of these buildings, and then he turns back and waits for you.
I'm quite curious as to how they got to their conclusions right now. Yes, we're walking into a lion's den, so to speak, but all right, tell you a bit of a secret. I've kind of been here before. And they may have changed it quite a bit, but it sure hasn't changed that much.
I am, as I say, we will learn nothing by remaining in here. We will have to either speak to them or whatever else at some point. So we may as well do so now whilst we're being invited.
All right, very good. So Radical will climb back up on top and kind of wave to him and say, where should we park?
Is this where you? It's a little softer. Come and park. There is a more solid patch of ground here. Come and settle yourselves there, and I will have a feast prepared for you.
Okay. I will drive I'm going to check out what he's looking at and see if it looks like
there does look like there's a more solid, like some of the material kind of fused into more like a blackened glass steel. You can see there are places where things have collapsed, but this looks like a more solid. He's clearly pointed you over to that because he certainly doesn't want this vehicle to fall through into the basement and get damaged or anything.
Okay. So I'll pull it around and angle it so that it's pointing in a way that would be a good exit direction.
Okay, that seems perfect. And he will come up with a couple of people, and they come kind of split the difference in the distance. They come to the middle, and they wait for you to emerge.
Okay.
So is everybody getting out, or is Court staying in the vehicle?
Oh, staying, and will wait to be summoned at an appropriately impressive moment.
Okay.
Or when danger calls.
Yes. A Soft and Do, you're also disembarking?
Yeah.
Yeah, Soft's pulled her hood up, which is not suspicious at all.
Rye, are you bringing your scholars with you, or are you leaving there to kind of man the vehicle in case you need something there?
I'm going to bring Maito with me, but I'm going to leave Stock and Testa in the vehicle.
This person will wait till you approach, and the three of you will come out, and he definitely, like, his head turns, like he sees that it is not what he would consider a typical scholar, but rather one of the Dancing Wave. That oddness, and certainly do you look like fisher folk, correct?
Yeah.
And this figure says, if it isn't Little Dew on Meadows, you were but a little smaller child than you are now when I last saw you.
Then I suppose it is a pleasure to make your acquaintance again.
Well, you three should follow me, or four, follow me, and we will go into the hall, and I have sent some of mine to have a meal prepared. And he will lead on. Doesn't introduce himself, but does go to lead you onto one of these improvised buildings. And you go in, and it looks like from somewhere they've gotten like a metal table. It clearly was bent, and they've unbent it, and they've got it set up as kind of a big dining table here. And there are some people that are setting plates out, mismatched plates and things out onto the table, and they are putting food out. And he turns to you, and he'll pull back his hood, and you can see, as the others do, it's kind of once you get inside out of the sunlight, their skin is kind of, doesn't look like fisherman's skin. It's kind of a mottled green, a discoloration there. You're not sure whether it's an illness or exposure to energies or what. And he will say, come and sit, and you can explain yourselves why you have brought a river folk and one of those who walk in the skies with you.
All right.
I am Heart on Grace.
And I am Radical of the Seed. And here we have my companion Maito of the Seed as well. He is well versed in various energy sources, as well as numerous different life forms across this world that we've encountered that have been changed and in different ways. I think will have a lot to say about our discussion.
Excellent. And they have a big meal that's brought out that seems to consist of some kind of bread, and most of the other things seems to be mushrooms of various kinds, sliced and cooked and so on in various ways. Not particularly well seasoned, but they will serve that up to you, and they dig in. Do you eat?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. And do?
Yep. I'll accept the hospitality.
Okay. And Soft, he turns to you and he says, I do not know how you feed Soft your people.
Well, we make do wherever we are. And just to prove the point, she picks up a piece of food and just kind of like pops it in her mouth. Doesn't chew. There's no swallowing motion either. Just pops it in. We're quite adaptable that way.
And they eat heartily, and he will stop and he will ask what the conditions are at the top of the crater, and he does small talk for a bit. Eventually, some of them will bring some kind of fermented beverage out and pours it for all of you, and kind of clearly takes the time to let you all sit and relax, get yourselves prepared before you have the big discussion here. Yes, Quartz, I was going to ask.
While when they disappear into this hutment, Quartz will be camouflaged inside the vehicle, but examining the settlement. And does this count as a landmark, or could I try to divine something about them based on the way they dressed and the way they acted? I'm wondering if I can unearth forgotten lore while observing.
Yeah, I like that. That seems reasonable to me.
So let's roll +1 lore. That's a 6. Okay. I can't remember whether you are. There's no experience to mark in this one, is there?
There is no experience to mark in this one.
So I spend some time scanning the settlement and learn very little.
that would be the first part of it. Now let us think about the GM move that triggers from this, and I think that you're actually starting to feel a little queasy here, like there's something pressing in on you, and I think you're going to mark a level of harm.
I think yes, let me just experiment with this. Okay, I will mark winded.
Yeah, you're like, oof.
Rather than replace that with bathed in blinding light, which
Right.
might do away with the camo.
Yes. So, radical. Dewan Meadows, soft. You've come here. What is it that we can do for you? You say you know about this energy source. You say you know how to harness these things.
We have encountered similar things near the Destiny's Rainbow, and we have recently developed some new technology that allows us to read fluctuations in these energy sources, and we picked up readings similar when a transport of ours was passing through here recently, across the top of the crater up there. Yes, we are very interested in finding the source of this energy, and perhaps we have some technology that can help channel it or purify it and remove some of the anomalies from it and make it more useful. We might be able to even create, energy for your whole settlement here to do industry or whatever it is that you're thinking of.
The energy is not like that to be put to fully mundane purposes. Either, but I understand what you mean. I take what you mean here. Let's have you roll sway.
Why am I doing the talking?
Well, the others will be able to assist probably.
They better, because I got a 7 minus 1.
Okay. Do either of you talk well and want to pitch in to assist this negotiation?
Oh, I talk really well. Apparently, I got a +2. So I think I probably should have been doing the talking, but I think
We live and learn.
yeah, I think Soft kind of leans forward and says like, well, it's not just how we could use their energy. Really, I'm also, well, to be honest, I'm also quite curious. How is it you got you group, which some would call heretics? I'm curious how you got this position.
Do not say the H word.
I know. I guess I'm curious how you came to find this presence, how you came to find this energy.
Let's have you roll the call for aid with sway.
Okay. All right, that's an 8.
So that will bump up a rank. And I think that number one, they want to know exactly what your agenda is. This is on the fine common ground. They want to hear what the deal is before they're willing. They clearly want more information. And they're clearly talking to you and the Enclave, and that they're willing to do this if this is a formal partnership. Like, we'll let your people come and investigate, but that is being done as a favor to you.
So I think Radical will get the sense that we need to be upfront here about everything, and kind of turn to do at some point in the conversation and say, Well, quick question. Well, these used to be river folk, right?
Yes.
But now they're tinged green.
Yeah. They've clearly been down here for a number of years and something has happened to them.
Is that something that I would know about through the Horror's Birth by the Fall from my deep knowledge?
Ooh. Yeah. There's no role for that, right?
No.
Okay. In that case, you can tell that whatever the energy is in here, it has been that has caused a physiological transformation in them.
Okay. Okay.
And because you have that knowledge, you will know it is not. It is cosmetic. Like they're clearly light sensitive, and it has clearly changed their skin color in some ways, but it is not infectious or anything like that.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So I'll say we brought Dew with us because I thought that you, as previous river folk, sometimes there are things that it's best to talk with amongst one's own kind, and it's good to know that at least we know some of your cultural things and are not total strangers. But Dew also has a request, I think, to make of you that we would like to very much broach with you, and we hope you will take no offense through this broaching. But as I said, for the seed, we are very much interested in this energy, and we would very much like to try to harness it and work with you on improving it.
Then we can do it. If you are willing to enter into a formal agreement, we will allow your people to come, and there's more than enough to go around. But do, what is your question, young one?
Yes, as Redsel mentioned, I am here to ask for assistance. Also, I'm not. I'm sure you are aware that there is a great volcano beneath the surface of the Great Lake, and all signs point to it being near its point of eruption. I believe that among the knowledge your people has is a great tome known as the Magma Opus that may point to
Everyone's heads kind of turn when you say that name.
A solution that would prevent, or at least allow us to control, this great force. I fear that without some form of intervention, the consequences will be grave, not only for the river folk, but for all those who live nearby.
Tell me, do you come here on your own, or are you coming as a speaker for the river folk?
I am here to represent the interests of the river folk. As you know, I cannot speak for all, but I come with the but I come in the interests of all.
I see. Well, I will give you the book, but the river folk must declare that we were right and we are not heretics.
there is clearly power here in what you have achieved, but and I can certainly make your case. I would like to spend some time with you, if I may, to learn more about you and your beliefs, and what you have wrought here. But if I may do so, I would happily represent you to our fellows.
That is agreeable to me.
Thank you.
And we'll say, so we can take you down below now if you'd like.
Maito, it's calm down. We'll get there soon enough. Yes.
Yes, let's go. Yes.
That would be fantastic.
Let me cut back to Quartz. See what Quartz is doing.
I think Quartz is getting nervous because we don't have comms.
No.
They disappeared into this building and they
Yeah.
had a long and social meal and then convoluted conversation. So I think Quartz is getting twitchy. And is anyone watching the vehicle?
Yeah, there probably one or two, but not like they're just like want to make sure that nothing big happens there. They're not like guarding the entrances and things like that. They clearly don't have a culture of having, heavy militarized guards.
And there were some of the scientists were left. Only Maito was taken.
There are two of the scholars are here in the vehicle. They're running tests and taking readings and conferring with one another.
Then I think I'll suggest that they should get out of the vehicle, and I will use their departure from the vehicle as cover to leave myself.
Why would we leave the vehicle?
Because I'm asking you nicely to.
Let me ask you then, Radical. What do you think? How would they know that Quartz is a peer of yours? Would they listen to him?
Yeah, if he could get their attention.
Okay.
I think they're so engaged in these readings and talking about chlorophyll and spikes in the ectoplasmic barometer readings of the whatever, and they're running back and forth, and this one's flipping a book open, and yeah, we'll get just open the door, go out if you want to go out.
I'll open the cloak and display a mantle. There's a glowing white light.
All right. And it's mostly because you're putting too much light in the room for them that they're like, okay. We'll go outside for a minute if that's what you want. If you'll leave us alone, then.
And I'd like to just slip out of the vehicle when as they get out.
Okay. I think that is not a problem with your camo.
No, exactly. And then move quietly and in stages towards the building that they disappeared into.
Okay. Well, I think then that the perfect moment for you to get up to the building and over here is when you hear this gentleman say, the river folk will say that we are right and not heretics. And then you hear, after a pause, you hear Duan Meadows' response to that.
Now, though I think Dew can guide me to the truth. There's truth and there's heresy, and this sounds distinctly either Dew is telling lies in saying that they can't. I think I will sweep into the room, stand behind Dew, and encompass them in my mantle, and
The
announce.
door flings open. Everyone is startled.
And from the loudspeaker issues a very loud, "Is the heresy put down? Is the book infectious?"
When you see Quartz begin to sweep in here, what do you do?
Yes, I think I don't think I'll do anything to stop him, but I'll say we have not yet had a chance to see the book. We do not know the teachings it contains. I cannot speak to the beliefs of these people as I have not yet spent long enough with them to learn from them.
Quartz will raise a gauntlet and point at the leader, whose name I don't know, but I'm assuming
Heart on Grace.
And say, "Give the book to Dew, as he says you have undertaken to do."
Let's see here. Let me ask what Soft and Radical are doing when this sudden ultimatum appears.
I think Soft has kind of just been like watching this whole the conversation with you and Hart, just like with interest, because like, wow, we're really reaching something here. And then Quartz bursts in, so I think what does what he does. So I think actually what she does is she'll stand up and put herself between Quartz and Hart, and she'll just say like, "Quartz, could you have picked a better time to be an idiot right now?"
And the head goes to one side and says, "Have I misunderstood our objective, Soft of the Wave?"
I think what Soft is trying to say, Quartz, is that we are reaching an agreement with these folks that will lead to all of our mutual objectives being met, but it may be a bit more complicated than what we first imagined it to be, as most things in life turn out to be.
The experiment was simple, Radical.
There
Obviously.
are more variables in this experiment than we believed before we began, my friend.
If we remove the book, we can test the heresy.
I don't think we are not totally sure that the two are tied together yet, and we will have to test that.
Indeed, the nature of the experiment. Let us remove the book and determine the nature of the heresy. Have I misunderstood our purpose?
I do not think you have misunderstood our purpose, but I think our friends here have added new variables to it, as I was saying. And with experiments, one must be sure that all variables are accounted for to understand what the causation is.
And these people all have now stood up. Heart on Grace has stood up. And he says,
What's their reaction to having one of the Sky Children in the room? I'm curious.
He says, "Is it your intention to commit violence if we do not give you the book?"
This is an experiment. The suggestion is that the book has communicated heresy to you. If you give up the book, then the absence of heresy will lead to a peaceful resolution.
If we do not give you the book,
Why would you not give us the book?
I asked you a question, Sky Child.
The presence is clear in these matters. There's a deliberate absence of an answer.
They are standing in that kind of cold standoff across from one another right now. Quartz isn't answering his question. He isn't answering Quartz's question.
I'm pointing a finger at him.
The truth is that if we, and by we, I suppose I mean myself, does not possess the book, or at least the knowledge it contains, then all will perish, not just the river folk, not just the sky children, not just those who dwell here. The potential for devastation that will be visited by the volcano beneath the lake is considerable.
I trust your judgment, dew of the river folk. What do you desire me to do?
For now, I think stand down. I do not wish to see bloodshed over this.
I take a step back, and the mantle, the halo, shrinks back, and I lower my finger.
He turns to you, Duke. Hart says, so you think that if we do not give you the book, that there will be bloodshed?
I know the the Sky Children's ways are unlike our own. They take things.
Yes, they do. They take things. And we are better than them. Bring him the book. And he gestures to one of the people. We will give you the book to show you that we are in the right. And one of these guys scurries off and is back a few minutes later with this very heavy book, because it's a big tome and its pages are made of metal that are etched with runes, and he kind of brings it over and he will set it down on the table, and there's a heat to it, like the magma opus actually radiates warmth, and he'll push it over to you, kind of pull his hands back because it's a little hot.
Yeah, and I think I've got kind of the thick gloves on this thing. I think even so, I'll gingerly open like the book and start to kind of, I leaf through it. It's probably not quite the right word when it's made out of hammered metal, but yeah.
You may take it with you. You will not find the secret here. You will take time to decipher it. So take the book with you.
Thank you. Heart on Grace. I am glad that you have done this, and I admire your convictions.
He smiles like he's like, yeah. And he turns to Radical and he says, and you and your people are welcome here in trade.
We are happy to have come to an agreement, and Maito and possibly one of my other associates will begin work right away, and we'll, as soon as you're willing, or allow them access to the site.
I would suggest that you depart now with your Skychild friend and the book, as you will probably need to return the book as quickly as possible. And I would prefer it if this one left. But then your people may return.
Very well. And I think Radical takes like a long drink of that fermented beverage and then walks, starts sitting towards the door.
Kind of catches in the back of your throat. You're like, oh.
Before we all leave,
Soft? Yes.
Yeah, I think Soft kind of like goes up to Hart and just kind of says like, "Are you people open to taking in those who would wish to believe?"
Absolutely.
There are people of mine. Yeah. What is it you call us? Those who walk in the sky. That's quite flattering. There are those who believe in the presence that we have lost our way. They're seeking, I guess they're seeking a home.
They are welcome to come down and join us.
I'll pass on the word then. Thank you.
Quartz, what's your take on all of this? They've got the book.
Yeah. As we walk back to the vehicle, I think that I will say to Dew, are they holy?
I could not say. It is not really my position to judge. I would like to learn more of them, and perhaps by doing so, I could get a better understanding of what's led them to live as they do. But in the meantime, I hope this book will at least contain the secrets to our immediate salvation, and perhaps further clues onto what brought them into the place they are now.
Because the logic of the situation is that they have helped the common weal as the presence would desire.
Yes, they have certainly acted in a way that is beneficial, or at least I hope will be beneficial.
I think I will mark them as having potential.
Nice. I think I would have cut that scene there. Leandro, go ahead and mark that you have one treaty on the Crater Heretics.
Mm-hmm.
Rye, give yourself surplus energy. And tell me how the book is able to, is it eliminate the threat of the volcano, or does it just forestall it for a while?
I think it maybe allows us to get a better understanding of it, and to an extent control it, or at least control its release of lava and stuff. I don't think it's gonna like permanently solve it, but I think it puts us in a position that it's a controlled risk rather than not, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. And Quartz, I think you learned quite a bit, so I'm going to give you 2 data. Does that seem like a fair set of things? let's stop here. We'll start with some family moves next time to kind of finish this out, and maybe we'll go to the turning of the ages then, and then that can be like a year, it can be 5 years, it can be 100 years. We'll talk about what that is. Does that seem like a reasonable way to handle things? Some of you may also have completed a role thing. So if you want to, next time we'll check in, and you can always change your role. You can do it here or later if you think that's important. And what that does is it will give you your character another move.
What I'm not sure is, where does data sit in the character sheet?
Oh, it actually goes under your family thing. It's right below slight on the family stats.
Oh, it's lore. Right. Yes.
Yeah, data is lore. That's one of those things. When I had the fantasy version, I called it lore, but it's right below slight.
Nope.
Does that seem cool? Everybody good with that? Does that seem like a fair payoff for the scene? And this would be the kind of typical thing we do. Typical thing is family moves. There's some thread or some things we need to zoom in on. Maybe we do some character interaction things. Maybe we'll zoom in on a problem, and maybe we only have one main PC and the other make quick characters, or we have a couple. And that's the usual mode of this. You have a question?
Yes. I'm just wondering.
Yes.
I'm just wondering. How do you see divine grace working? Because I'm just wondering, once per age, when you see the presence in another's actions, you may add a new commandment to your list, emulating their deeds. Both of you receive an immaterial.
I think this is a perfect time to do that, for you to come up with a new commandment.
I think, let me think, because I think it's a family move. So let's zoom out.
Yeah.
And at the family level, I just want to think about that in advance.
Because that will give you both a surplus. An immaterial surplus. So that's a useful one.
Then can I grab a text for that mold thing we saw on the way in?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You can do that on the way back. Super.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else? Okay. I think then we're going to stop the broadcast. Is everyone cool with me posting this? Okay. Just make sure. All right.